we are seeing about the arrays and the linked list, and we saw what are the drawbacks in array. Okay, so we saw that there are main limitations in arrays. Can you recollect? So we discussed about some few points like arrays. In arrays, we have the limitation like it has fixed array size. We have to state the array size earlier. So am I not audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So we saw that in arrays, the size of the array, that is the memory requirement, must be stated very much earlier before starting your program. And okay. And what are the other limitations we saw? So whenever we are doing some insertion and deletions in your array, we need to do so many operations. Okay, that is, for example, if I want to delete a particular element in your array, that is an element which is in between in your array, there is a limitation. So we cannot leave a particular position as vacant. Imagine that there are 10 elements in your array and I want to remove the fifth element. What will happen if I'm removing the fifth element? That position will become empty. So in arrays, certain locations cannot be empty. Okay, all the locations must be continuous. Your data must be available in sequential location, and since we are going to use an index position to access all the array elements. Okay, so continuously we'll sequentially access the data elements. So any particular position cannot be left as empty. Okay, so if a particular position is empty, you have to fill it with some data, probably the data in the next position. So I'll give you one more example here. Imagine some 10 persons are standing in a queue, and imagine one person, the fifth person, goes out of the queue. So you cannot leave that place as empty. All the persons from the 6th to 10th position, they will move one position forward, is it not? So thereby, without leaving any vacant position, the all the positions should be filled. So this is one example. So we need to do so many operations. Moving one person from one place to another is also one task. Okay, so that was considered as a major limitation in arrays. Okay, inserting and deleting elements. So in that case, if you are doing in the middle, you have to take a lot of additional tasks. That is one limitation. Okay, so the memory requirement and this insertion and deletion. So that's why we went for another notation called as linked list, where we are going to dynamically allocate memory. That is, at runtime, I will ask that I need this number of locations, like that. Okay, so as and when required, we'll allocate memory, and whenever it is of no use, we can release that memory. That is the advantage of your linked list. And last class, we saw this notation of a linked list. Okay, so once again, I'm showing you the notation of a linked list, because today we'll see more about routines, how insertions and deletions are done in a linked list. The routines we are going to see today. So once again, we'll see the node structure of a linked list. So the definition for your linked list is, it is a collection of nodes linked together by reference from one node to another node. So linked list is a collection of nodes, and each node will have two fields. So one field, for example, here A0, the first node, it has two fields. One is for data and another one is for the for storing the address of the second node. So A0 represents the data field. Okay, so here A0, A1, A2, they represent the data field, and you have also one more field to store the address of the next nodes. Okay, so each node is represented in this manner, and you have some pointer like thing like first and last. So this is one more thing. This is an optional thing. You can have a pointer to traverse between the elements in a linked list. Okay, you can have a pointer to traverse through all the elements. So this is a node structure we saw, and this is one more variation of a linked list I've shown here. That is, optionally you can have a header node. Okay, optionally you can have a header node. So here A0, A1, A2, A3, they represent datas. Okay, data. And if I want, I can have an additional header node as the starting node, and header node will not have any data, but it can hold the address of the first node. Okay, so header node can hold the address of the first node to tell that this is the starting address of a particular linked list, like that. It will hold only the address. Header node will not have any data field. Okay. So this is one more variation. Optional. The having a header node is optional. According to the user, you can design whether we need a header or not. Okay. And this is a node structure we saw in the last class. A data field will have some value like this, and in the link field you have address of the next node. And we saw that pointer and all we saw in the last class itself. And here once again I've shown a diagram here. Start defines the header node, and you have some set of nodes, and the last node is represented by a into mark in the address field. It denotes that it is the last node. Okay, it denotes a null value in the address field of the last node. Okay, and this is one more representation. So these are all needed when you are designing a program. I'll check whether this is the last node by checking that whether the address field is null or not. If the address field is null, it defines that it is the last node. Okay, and this is also one more example where you have some set of nodes and each node will have an address. For example, 1000 denotes the address of the first node, and 800 defines the address of the second node. 712 denotes the address of the third node. Like that, you have each and every node, it has its own specific address. So in that address, the data and the address of the next field will be stored. Okay, so here what you should note down, 800 is the address of the second node. It is stored in the second field of your first node. Okay, so and similarly 712, it is the address of the third node. It is saved in the address field of the second node. So thereby we maintain a chain of pointers. We have a chain of pointers or chain of nodes. They are linked together. Only through this data we are linking all the nodes together. Otherwise they are placed in memory in various locations. They are not placed sequentially as in arrays. Okay, so only in arrays data is stored sequentially, but in linked lists all these nodes, they are placed scattered somewhere in the memory. So only by saving this address in this address field, we have a link of where the next data is available. Okay, so only by that we can identify next data is available in this 800 location, and the third node is available in the 712, like that. Okay, and we saw that there are some limitations in your array or in your linked list also. Okay, they are not randomly accessed like array. So in array I can pick out an element from somewhere, for example a of 10 or a of 5, like that. Randomly I can pick data in any position in your array, but in linked list you cannot do that. Okay, always whatever operation you are going to do, you are going to start from the starting node or the header node. So that's why today I have introduced the header node. Okay, so always you are going to start from the header node. For example, imagine I'm going to delete a particular node, delete the third node. In that case, I cannot go straight away to the third node. I have to start from the header node. I have to scan through, I have to traverse the first element, second element, then only I can reach the third element. Okay, so similarly, if I want to insert data in the 100th position, I have to start from the header node. I have to move through till the 99th position. Then only I can insert new data into the 100th position. Okay, so that is the very tedious task in your linked list. We have to traverse always from the first position. Okay. So until so here the points are listed. Traverse the list sequentially until it finds or not finds a node. Similarly, when you are searching a data element, if a particular element is available in the third position, you can easily find. Imagine if the element is found in the 100th position, I have to search till the 100th position. And imagine a linked list with some 1000 data, and I am searching for an element which is not at all present in the list. What will happen? 1000 times I'll be searching, but it is not available there. Okay, so thereby your traversing is the major task in your linked list. It takes a lot of time. So next we'll see the next one. So this also we saw in the last class, how to insert. So why I'm showing the diagram here is because we are going to write routines today. We are going to see how to program a linked list, how to write a routines. Routines are like algorithms. So in your first year, we have studied an algorithm, is it not? So in data structures, usually in exams, they won't ask programs. You'll be asked to explain the technique, and then you have to write routines. Routines are like algorithms. So write a routine to insert a data in a linked list, or write the routines to perform all the operations in a linked list. Like that they will ask. So you won't be asked to write programs. In your university exams, they won't ask you to write programs since you're having a separate lab for that. Okay. So we have to study how to write routines. That's why I've shown. I'm once again showing you the diagram. So you just see you have some 5 elements. If you want to insert a new element, what we did in the last class, can you remember? We did only 2 operations. We modified the address value of A2 as the address of X, and we modified the address field of X to have this address of this A3. Okay. So for example, if A3 is available in position 2000, I am going to store 2000 in the address field of X. And if X is available in the position 5000, I'm going to store the value of 5000 into this address field of A2. That's all. So only 2 assignments are needed. Assignment statement. In program, we'll write assignment statement. Is it not? A is equal to, B is equal to, like that. Only 2 assignments you're going to do to note down these values. These 2 assignments will be useful to insert a new node into your linked list. Okay, just 2 tasks are enough. And in deletion. So this also we saw in the last class. What we did for deletion, for insertion, we did 2 tasks. Okay. So whatever be the size of your linked list, we are going to do only 2 steps to insert a new element. And similarly, whatever be the size of your linked list, we are going to do only one task to remove the node from your linked list. For example, if I want to remove this node A3, we are going to store the address of this A4 into A2. Then the path will be modified. Your path was earlier A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. Now, after removing A3, the path should be A1, A2, A4, and A5. We don't bother about this A3. Okay. So just it is enough if you are storing A4 into this address field of A2. We need to store the address of A4 into the address field of A2. That's enough. Just only one step is enough to do deletion operation, and we can make this A3 as null, and you can free this using your release free operation in your dynamic memory allocation. That and all, that's our other steps. So this also we saw in the last class. I hope you have in your notebook. Okay. So the slides, whatever diagrams you're seeing, please draw in your notebook so that later you can refer. This also diagram, it will be available in your notebook. Okay. In array, how we are doing insertion. When I want to insert, I move all the elements from X2 to X6. I create a vacant position and place Y here. Similarly, in a linked list, if I want to insert a Y, I don't move anything. Just I make these 2 pointer assignments. Just these 2 pointer assignments we are doing. Okay, in a linked list. That is the advantage of your insertions and deletions in your linked list compared to arrays. See, are the slides visible? I'm in the 12th slide, linked list. Which slide is visible to you all?
Linked list. Linked list types.
Linked list types. Okay. So far we have seen just a very simple linked list where you have some set of nodes. They're all connected by the address fields. So there are so many variations in your linked list also. Okay, so that we will discuss now. Okay, so there are 3 types of linked list: singly linked list, circularly linked list, and doubly linked list. Okay, these are all various notations. So whatever we have seen so far, they denote singly linked list. We have a single pointer pointing from one node to another node. That is your singly linked list. Okay, and then you just write this once 1 minute. You just write this. Okay, so these are the 3 variations. Okay, so we'll see how to program your singly linked list today, and probably tomorrow we'll see how to program a circularly linked list and doubly linked list. Okay, so to begin with, we'll start with the singly linked list. Once again, singly linked list is whatever we have seen in our earlier classes. They're all singly linked list. We can take the example like that. And so I have shown once again the example. A singly linked list provides access to the list from the head node. You have a header node and followed by a set of data nodes. Okay, a header node will have the address of the first node, and you have some sequence of data. After that, you have the null at the end. And in a linked list, there is the traversal is allowed only one way. In a singly linked list, we are going to compare all the three types of linked list. Okay, in a singly linked list, the traversal is allowed only one way. It means that I can go only in one direction, from left to right or from first to last, like that. You can traverse your linked list only in one direction. Okay, I'll start from A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, like that. Okay, and there is no going back. We cannot go back. We cannot traverse to the previous elements. I will always go forward. And then one more point is insertion. We can do all these operations. We can do insertion, deletion, merge, and traversal with your singly linked list. You can merge two linked lists, or you can delete a particular element, like that. These are the operations done in your singly linked list. So you might imagine that why we need all these variations of linked list, is it not? So simply you can store data in a singly linked list itself. Why should we go for doubly linked list, or why should we go for a circularly linked list, like that you can think. But when there are certain applications where we need to go back, I'm traversing, but I want to go back to the previous element, like that. If I want to do, I might have a data structure for that. So to provide that facility, we are going in for other variations like doubly linked list and circularly linked list to go back. But whereas in a singly linked list, we can traverse only in one way. I cannot go back. Once I have gone to A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, there is no way of moving backwards. Okay, I have to go this way and I have to end my traversal. And you can draw this diagram for doubly linked list. So a doubly linked list will have two references. That is, it will have two pointers. You just see this diagram. You have the node representation itself. It will have three fields. In the singly linked list, we saw that there are only two fields in your node. One is for data and another one is for the address field. Whereas in a doubly linked list, you have you have three fields. One to denote the address of the next node, and another to denote the address of the previous node. Okay, so you have three fields, is it not? I'll take this A3. You come to this node A3. A3 has three fields, and the center field, second field, is to denote the data. And the first field of A3, it will store the address of the previous node. And the third field of A3 will have the address of the next node. Okay, so each and every node will have three fields. One field is to store the address of the previous node, and one field is to store the address of the next node, and one more field to store the data. Okay, so this is the notation used in your doubly linked list. Okay, so you have two references. References means it denotes the pointers. So you'll have both the address of the previous node and the next node. So this will be applied in some of the applications where we need to traverse. We need to look at both the direction. When we need to go back, like that, we can use the doubly linked list. You just draw this diagram. So we can traverse in both the direction. I can go front or I can go back, like that. We can traverse in both the direction. So programming notation we'll see later. Okay. So first we'll see the structure of this doubly linked list, how it will be, like that. Then we'll go in depth. Have we drawn? Shall we move on to the next one, circularly linked list? We'll see the node structure of a circular linked list. So Ashwin has asked a question. In deletion, the deleted memory is set to free, or it will be free using free function. So here we have to, when in a deletion operation, Ashwin, in a deletion operation, we have to free the memory. While writing the deletion routine itself, you have to use this function called free to free that location. Otherwise, it will not be freed. Automatically, it won't get released. we have to write the coding, write the function called free. So only in Java program and all automatic dynamically memory will be released. Whereas in C or C program and all, we have to release the memory ourselves. We have to use this free function. We have to explicitly we have to write coding. To be technical, we have to write explicitly. You have to call the free function to delete a node. Delete means to free that node. Okay. Okay. So now let's go to the next slide. We'll see about a circularly linked list. Okay. So in circularly linked list, you just see what is the variation in your diagram. You can see the diagrammatic notation of a circularly linked list. The start node, it represents the header node. Okay. So two notations I've used. In one diagram, I've used header. In another diagram, I've used start. Both these are taken from your textbook. The one notation I took from your textbook, first textbook, and this diagram I took from your second textbook. That's all. Okay. So here they have used the notation called start to define the header node. Okay. And you have some chain of nodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And at the end, you just see the node structure of 7. 7, the address field of 7 is pointing to the first node. That is the only variation. The address field of 7 is pointing to the first node. So you don't have a null there. So this is a circularly linked list. You start from the first node, go to the last node, once again come back to the first node. You just make a circular structure. Okay, we traverse through the nodes in a circular notation. So this will also be useful in some applications. So it depends on the application. Like when I want to go and see the data, once again, I'll go and use this type of data structure. Okay, you can read through the points. The last cell keeps a pointer back to the first. And then this can be done with or without a header. Always your header is optional. Okay, it depends on us, how we write a program. Okay, even without a header, you can design any type of linked list. There is no problem. Just for ease of understanding, we are going to use a header. Initially, we'll initialize a header with the address of the first node. That's all. There's no problem in using a header. And circularly linked lists, they are mainly used in polynomial ADT. So ADT is your abstract data types. So polynomial ADT means, for example, imagine a polynomial function. Polynomial means, for example, you'll have like ax squared plus bx squared plus bx plus c, like that. Is it not? 10x squared plus 5x plus 3, like that. You have this polynomial structure. When you're having some polynomials, you can perform some operations on the polynomials like addition, subtraction, like that. So your linked list is has one facility to help in polynomial operations. In that case, a circularly linked list will be of helpful when you are doing polynomial additions. So that is the use of your circularly linked list. So next we'll see the one more diagram I've given, one more example. You can take down this also. Then we'll move on for the programming part or routines. So once again, one more example I've given here. You just see how the end nodes they are denoted. In your singly linked list, only the last node is made as null. In your doubly linked list, the first node, if I'm not using a header, in this case, this is a case where you don't have a header. Okay, your first node, the first previous field. So you don't have a previous field, is it not? For the first node, in that case, it will be made as null, and the next field of your last node will also be made as null. In all other cases, you have both previous and next node addresses. And in a circularly linked list, once again, this is more simple. The last node has the address of the first node. Okay. So this is one more example where I don't have a header, and at the same time, you can see where null is stored. So all these you are going to pack all these informations in a program. When you are writing a routine, you have to remember everything. What are the number of fields in a node? What will be available in each field? And when all you will have null in that, only if you know that, you can apply all the condition and do insertion, deletions, everything. Okay, we'll go for the next slide. We'll see how to implement your linked list using a program and a routine. So in some places I'll be using C coding program, and some places we are going to see routines. Okay. So this one, have you seen this already? Did I show this slide already? Node structure. Yes or no?
No.
No. Okay. So this is a general way of defining your node structure. If you are taking a C program, this notation you just see, you have a struct node. I'm defining a user defined data type, like how you are having int a. Here afterwards, I'm going to use a notation called struct. Okay, I'm going to use node. Node is going to be a user defined data type. Okay, in that node, what we are going to have, in that node, you're having two fields. You're going to pack two information into your node. One is for the data and another one is for the address field. So those two terms you're going to define inside your structure. Imagine, once again, recollect what you have studied in your earlier semesters. For student mark list processing, you might have used the struct notation. Struct student. Inside that, you will have name, character name 10, and then marks, roll number, like that. You will pack some set of data elements into your struct element. The same thing we are going to use for here also. To implement a linked list, you are going to use a structure variable. Inside that, I'm going to pack these two information, that is data and the address. So every node will have these two information. Is it not? Data and address. So data field, it is defined as an integer now, int data. And then the next field, it's going to be holding the address of the next node. Okay. So simply if it is an address of an integer, I can write here int star next. But what we are going to store here, we are going to store the address of another node. Node means, you just imagine address of a similar structure like this. It's going to be address of another structure variable. Okay, so therefore we have written struct node star next. Okay, so the next field is, second field is going to hold the address of a node in a linked list. So that's why we have written struct node star instead of simply writing a integer pointer. Simply it's not going to store an integer pointer, it's going to store the address of a node in your linked list. So you have to write struct node star next. Okay, so this variable next is going to hold this 2000. Data is going to hold this value 5. Okay, and we have defined this as a node. This is a variable. Okay, can you understand this? There are two fields. By now you just understand there are two fields. One is the data field, another one is the address field. Data field is an integer. We use the term called data. And then your address field is denoted by a variable called next. Okay, your address field is denoted by a variable called next. And we'll see, and I've defined node star head is equal to null. So node star head, it defines I'm creating a variable called head and I've initialized it as a null. So we have created a linked list and it does not have anything. An empty linked list we have created, that is defined by node star head is equal to null. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. So here I've shown how to create a new node and attach it to your header node. Okay, so how shall we create a new node? First node we are going to create. Okay, so here memory must be allocated for one node and assigned to the head as follows. So I'll explain line by line. So we are going to create a first node. In the previous slide, we saw how to create a header node with an empty list. We don't have anything. Okay, we created an empty list. So that I've defined it here, node star my node. Okay, node star my node. Okay, so we have created a new node here. So like how in the previous slide what we did, we created node star head and defined it as null. So we have created a header node with an empty list. And then next I'm going to create a new node. So node star, we have created a new node. Our new node is named as my node. Node star my node, it defines that we have created a new node. And as I told you already, in linked list, whenever required, we are going to create memory. Initially, we're not going to tell that I need 10 nodes like that. I'm going to create nodes one by one. So to create a single node, we are going to write like my node and then node star malloc size of node. So size of node denotes what is the size of your node structure. So for example, let's go to the previous slide once again. Size of node, this is your node. Okay, node is your node. Size of means it will return how much memory is required to store a single node. So that we can calculate based on the number of variables available in your struct. So what are the variables available in your node? We have to see. One is your integer, another one is your address field. So this integer might take some 2 bytes, and this address field, it might take some 4 bytes. So put together, it is we need 6 bytes. Okay. Voice is not clear. Some of you are telling. My voice is clear or not? For others, if you have any problem, you can tell. Okay, so since our node has 2 fields, your function size of it will return the number of bytes required to store a single node. Okay, so in this case, our node has 2 fields. One is for the integer and another one is for the address. So it needs some 2 bytes for this storing this data and 4 bytes to store this address, means totally 6 bytes. So the size of function, it might So is the slide visible? Creating the first node. Creating the first node. I'm having the slide creating the first node.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So all the other slides, was it visible? This node structure and all? Yes, it was visible, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Aishwarya, check your connection. So when you're creating the first node, your size of function, it will return the number of bytes required for a single node. So probably you consider it as a 6 bytes. So this malloc function, it will allocate 6 bytes. Okay, it will allocate 6 bytes of type node star. Okay, and its address, it will be assigned to my node. For example, imagine this node, I've given address as 1000. So a memory location 1000, it is assigned for this particular my node. So memory location 1000, it is given for this my node, and some probably 6 bytes it is allocated. 6 bytes will be allocated for this my node. So you can count 6 bytes: 1000, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, and 1005. These 6 bytes will be allocated for this particular single node. Okay, so those locations, it is reserved for this my node. So that is the meaning of this particular statement. Okay, malloc is your dynamic memory allocation function. It will allocate memory at runtime based on this size of function. Size of node, this node represent your struct variable. Your struct variable node is your struct variable. It defines that your structure has 2 variables. One is for the data and another one is for the address. So 6 bytes will be allocated. Okay, we are requesting for 6 bytes, that will be allocated. So some free location like 1000, it is assigned for your my node. So then what we should do? Now we got the memory, we have to store the data inside that memory, is it not? So for that, use this structure, my node arrow data. Okay, my node arrow data. So in your C program in last semester also, you might have used the same notation. To access individual elements in your structure, what we should do? We should use this pointer notation. Okay, my node arrow data is equal to 10. This will store the value of data into the data field. So your node will have 2 fields. One is the data and another one is the next. I'll show you once again the previous slide. That is, we have 2 fields, data and next. These are the 2 variables we are going to use, but we have to use it along with the pointer notation. Okay, so if I'm creating a new node called my node, I have to use like my node arrow data and then my node arrow next, like that. We have to use it along with the pointer. Okay, so node name arrow and then the data field. Node name my node arrow data and my node arrow next. So we are going to store the value of 10 in this data field, and we are going to store something in the next field also. Okay, so here now you just see this my node arrow data is equal to 10. This will place the value of 10 inside the data field of the first node. I have created a new node called my node. In that, we are placing this value of 10. And then what about the next field? Since I'm creating a new node, I don't know what is the next node, is it not? So this is a new node. So simply you can initialize null into the address field. Next is the address field of that particular node. You can store null in the address field of the new node. So whenever you're creating a new node, you're going to follow these 3 steps. Okay, whenever you're creating a new node, you can follow these 3 steps. You create a new, you use your malloc function to allocate memory. Then in the data field, you place some data. Then in the address field, you place null. That is the first step in creating a new node. Okay. So after creating a new node, what we shall do? We can make the header field to point to this new node also. You can make like head arrow next is equal to my node. Like that you can include one line. Head arrow next is equal to my node. Like that. You can write one more line to add your first node to your header node. Okay. So now we'll see how to include one more node. The first node we have created, is it not? Next we'll see how to create one more node and add into your linked list. See, adding a second node and linking. So to create a second node, what I'm going to do once again, node star. Now I've used one more name called next node. Earlier I used my node, is it not? Similarly, you can use any variable name. Node star next node. Next node is your new node I'm creating, is equal to malloc size of node. It will once again allocate some 6 bytes. Okay, so that is available. The address of that 6 bytes, the first address of that 6 bytes, it will be available in this next node. Okay, so then we'll place this value. I'm going to store some 12 in that particular new node. In the second node, I'm going to store the data 12. So next node arrow data is equal to 12, and next node arrow next is equal to null. So these are the 3 steps I told you. You have to use these 3 steps to create a new node. Whenever you create a new node, allocate memory using malloc, assign the data value into the data field, and assign null into the next field. This is the thing you're going to always follow. Okay, and the address field, it is 1200. By now we assume that the address allocated for this particular node, new node, is 1200. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, so address of this first node and second node is 1000. It is not necessary that it should be sequential. Somewhere it will be allocated. Okay, so now what we shall do, we have to link these two, is it not? We have to link the first node with the second node. So first node, name of your first node is my node. I have to link these two nodes. So the address of the second node is available in the variable called next node. Next node holds the starting address of the next node. Okay, so that you are going to store it in the next field of your my node. In your pointer field of your my node, in your pointer field of your first node, we are going to save the address of the second node. So that is defined by this line, my node arrow next. So this is the my node arrow next. In that we are going to save the address of the next node, that is 1200. We are going to store 1200 into the address field of the first node. Can you understand this? We are going to store the address field, address of the second node in the address field of the first node. Okay, so thereby we connect two nodes. We make a chain of nodes like this. So like this, any number of nodes can be added to your linked list. So this is the way we are going to create new nodes and connect together. Okay. So next we'll see some of the functions. So this is just a basic I've given how to write a C program. In C program, how to dynamically allocate memory for a single node, and how to create a new node, and how to attach nodes together. So this is a very simple introduction. Once again, we can have a glance later. And next we are going to see some of the functions. We are going to do everything as a set of functions. In C program, we can call C program as a structured program. What is the notation of a structured program? You'll have main function, you'll have so many smaller functions. So to do every operation, you're going to write simple functions. For example, for insertion, I'll have a function. For deletion, I'll have a function. To check whether the linked list is empty or not, I'll have a function. And like that. For searching an element, we are going to write a function. We are going to write it as a set of functions. Okay. So now we'll see how to write a function like that. We'll see how to write a function which will find whether a list is empty or not. Now we are going to write a function in C program that will check whether a linked list is empty or not. Okay. So how will your empty list will be? Your empty list will have only header node, and the address field of your header will have null. So imagine always you have the pictorial view, you will have a header node and you don't have any data node. You don't have any data node means it defines that your list is empty. You don't have any data node. So how to check this in your program? So we are going to define a function called as int is empty. You just read through this line. This function, the name of this function is empty. This function will return something. So what it's going to return? It's going to return an integer. It's going to return whether this particular list is empty or not. So this function takes some input and it returns some output. Can anyone define what is the input and what is the output of this function? What will be the input for this function and what will be the output for this function? For a function, how can we give input?
Linked list is the input, ma'am.
Okay. So from the coding you just tell, I've given one line, int is empty list_l. What is the input for this function? How will you provide input for your function? Linked list is the input. Okay. You can tell, can you tell like list L is the input? Is it not? From your coding, from your statement, you just tell. List L is your input. Is it correct? Your answer is correct.
Yes,
Linked
ma'am.
list is the input. And here in this example, L is your input. That is, okay, very good. You've answered. That is, you will be providing input for your function through your argument list, through this particular parameter list. Inside this bracket, whatever you give, that will be acting as a input for your function. Whatever be the function, parameter list, it will give the, it will be acting as a input. Okay. Okay. And what will be the output of this function? Can you guess what is the output? This is your output. The return, whatever you're returning, that will be your output. So the return is going to be return value. Here we have mentioned it as int. What this function is going to return? It's going to return whether the list is empty or not. It's going to tell true or false, yes or no, like that. If the list is empty, it's going to tell yes or 1. If the list is not empty, it's going to tell 0, like that. Something it is returning. This return field, it denotes the output of this function. So this function also, like a program, it will take some input, it will provide some output. The input is defined in this parameter list and output is defined by your return value. Okay. So that is the thing. The input is your list. That's why I want to define the input here. Input is your linked list. So this L is going to be your linked list. So L is given as input for this function. So you just watch this coding. Only one line to check whether your list is empty. If your list is empty, it means that your header must have a null in the address part. Is it not? So now we have made this L as a linked list. L arrow next. L arrow next denotes the address of your header node. L arrow next denotes the address of the header node. If it is null, so return L arrow next is equal to null. Here you just note down it is a comparison operator. It is a double equal to operator. I've enclosed it inside the return statement. If there is a comparison operator, what it will execute the if statement. If L arrow next is equal to null, this return function, it will return 1. Okay. So if it is null, if your address field of this L arrow next, if it is null, it will return 1. Or else, if it does not have null, if it has some address like 1000 or 2000, it means that your list is not empty. Okay. So if your L arrow next has some 1000 here, it means that your linked list is not empty. In that case, this will return false. It will return a 0. Okay. So here, that is the function definition here. It will return either a 0 or 1 based on the output of this comparison statement. This is a if statement. Your if statement can be written like this also inside your return statement. Okay. So if L arrow next equal to null, if it is null, then it will return true, or it will return 0. If it is non-empty, it will return a 0. Okay. You just write this in your notebook. This is a function to find whether a list is empty or not. So why we are checking this? So if I'm implementing a function, if I'm implementing a linked list, if I want to do some search operation, I should go and find whether the list is empty. If it is empty, I need not go and search. Similarly, when I'm going to insert nodes into a linked list, if the list is already empty, whatever node I'm creating, it's going to be the first node. If the list is not empty, if it already has some 3 nodes, my new node will become the 4th node. So that is the use of this function. We'll always use this function to check whether the list is empty. If the list is empty, my new node will become the first node. If the list is not empty, if it has some 3 elements, my new node will become the 3rd element. So that is the purpose in your insertion. When I'm doing insertion, I will check whether list is already empty or not. So at that time, we can use this function. Okay. So we'll see how to define one more function to find whether a node is the last node or not. We are going to write one more function to find whether a particular node is a last node or not. Can you guess how to find whether a node is a last node or not? Theoretically, how can we define whether a node is a last node or not? Theoretically, how can we define?
Last node has address null, ma'am.
Yes, last node, address of the last node is null. Okay, so with that we can identify that it is the last node. All the other nodes it will have the address, some address it will have, but only the last node will have a null. So that is a technique to find out whether this particular node is a last node or not. So for that, if you want to write some coding, so to write a function, we can write like, our function is going to be like this: int isLast. You can give any name. We have given a name called isLast. IsLast is a function which is going to find out whether this particular node is a last node or not. So your linked list name is list L and the position P. We might be at some position. Imagine we are at position A5. A5 is the position P. P holds the address of the node A5. Imagine like that. P holds the address of this A5. In that case, our function, it will check whether P arrow next is equal to null. If P arrow next is equal to null, it will return true. Okay. So P holds the address of the address of A5. If P holds the address of A5, it's going to return true because the address of A5, the next field of A5 holds null. Okay. So let's take one more example. If P holds the address of this node A3, take this node A3. If P holds the address of A3, what will be available in the P arrow next? If P is A3, if P points to P's position, okay. If P points to this node A3, the address field of A3 will have some address of this A4. Yes, it will have the address of A4. It won't be null. So in that case, this statement will go false. Return of P, this one, P arrow next is equal to null. The statement will go false. In that case, the return value will be 0. So this function is going to return either a 0 or 1. If the condition is true, it's going to return true. If the condition is false, it's going to return 0. So if your next field is not null, if it has some address like A3, it will return false. If your position is pointing to node A5, the address field is null. In that case, this statement is going to return the value true. Okay, so that is the way of checking whether a node is a last node or not. These are very simple function. Okay, so finding whether a list is empty and finding whether this node is a last node is all empty. I'm starting with these simple things so that you can understand other routines. Okay, we'll go for a find routine. We'll be seeing find routine. Find is searching. You're going to search whether a particular item is present in your list or not. Okay, we are going to use this function. So how our function is going to be defined is, it's going to return the position of X. If our search element is X, our linked list is named as L and our search element is X. If that element is present, it is going to return the position of that particular element. And if it is not present, it is going to return null. Okay. So we'll see the header, the function header is going to be like this. So here we're not going to write a function, I think. No. Okay, we'll see. The find function is going to return the position of a search element, and your search element is called X and your list is named as L. Here I've defined a routine here. This is not a C program, this is a routine. Now we can differentiate what is a routine and a C program. In C program, how you will write for data type, you will write like int. Specifically, you will have int, or return type will be void or int, like that. Is it not? Here we have written a generic format, position, and then the element type. I've not used int or float, we have used element type, like that. Your routines will have generic format. It is like an algorithm. In first year, we have studied some sort of algorithm. You'll write some statement like thing. You have studied about pseudocode also. A routine will be like closer to your program, but data types will be generic. That's your routine. But clearly, it will depict all these steps in doing a task. So this can be applied for any programming language. When I'm having a routine, I can apply it for a C program or a C++ program. So that's why routines are generic. Okay, it is common for any language. And here find is a routine. It will return the position of the search element, where a search element is X, and we're going to search this element from a list L. And we'll see the steps. We have declared position as P. We have declared one variable called P as a position, and I've given some line numbers called 1, 2, 3, like that for explaining easily. And L defines, okay, you can take down the header, it's hiding. You can write down this header, position, find element type X and list L. You write this one. So we're going to search whether element X is present in your list. And we saw there is one drawback in your linked list. What is that? We have to always start from the starting node. We have to start from the header node, and then we have to traverse. We have to move from the first node till the last node to do any operation. So that we are going to do now. We are going to see a type of traversal. Okay. So P is equal to L around X. So L holds the address of the linked list. The starting address of the linked list, it is present in your L. Okay. So let's take, there are so many variations. Imagine before starting a search operation, imagine of so many variations. There are three possibilities. One thing is your linked list might be empty. If your linked list is empty, automatically your search element will not be there. That is case one. I'm going to define three cases here. Case one is your linked list might be empty. In that case, your search is going to be a failure. You don't have your search element inside your linked list. And another possibility is you might have some data elements inside your linked list. And when I'm searching, my data element may not be present. I'm searching for data element called 10. It may not be present inside the linked list. So when I'm searching, it might not be found. That is another case. And the third possibility is the search element might be present in your linked list. So we'll have a positive result. Your search element might be present in some third position. So that position can be returned. So these are the three possible cases we are going to discuss now. Okay, for a find routine, there are three possible cases. So this and all you can write by the side in your notebook. There are three possible cases. One is your list might be empty, and another one is your list may have the data. Another case is your list may not have the data. Now all the three cases you're going to discuss. So P is equal to L arrow next defines that L has the, imagine L is the header node. L arrow next will have the address of the first node. So address of the first node is placed in P. Okay. So here first I have defined an empty list. An empty list where your header is null. In that case, we can first check whether this header is null or not. So we can check whether this L arrow next is null. If it is next, if L arrow next is null, straight away we can return the element not found, like that we can return. And then we have a while condition. I have given one more example. We have a linked list where you have some data elements called 10, 30, and 50, and I am searching for an element called 20. So 20 is not available in this list. So what we will do is we have to traverse from the beginning. Okay, we have used a while loop to define your traversal. So while p not equal to null. So if p is equal to null, it defines that the first case. If p is equal to null, it defines that list is empty and we need not go on traverse at all. We can straight away return, end the function and we can return. That is the use of this statement. While p not equal to null. If p is null, you can return. And if p is not null, it means that you have some data elements here, and we are going to see whether p arrow element not equal to x. Here you have to think p arrow element defines. So now we have used, instead of data, we have used the term element. So don't get confused. So this is also one more notation. Imagine our node structure, it has the element and next. Like how in the previous node structure we saw data, now element defines the data field. So if p arrow element is not x, if p arrow data is not x, I'm going to search. For example, in the first case, what will be here? P arrow element is 10, but my search element is 20. So x is 20 and p arrow element is 10. So it is not a match. So if it is not a match, we'll execute whatever is inside the while loop. That is, I'm going to traverse. I'm going to jump to the next node. So the coding to jump to the next node, it is written inside this while loop. How to jump to the next node? Okay. So simply to jump to the next node, we are going to use a statement called p is equal to p arrow next. Okay, p is this one. P defines the first node. I'm modifying this p as p arrow next. P arrow next holds the address of the next node, is it not? P arrow next holds the address of the next node. So we are storing that address in p. So this is a technique to traverse your linked list. P is equal to p arrow next. So at that time, what will happen? Now a modified p will be this pointing to this 30. So once again, we'll check whether 30 is your matching with your 20. Your search element x is 20 and p arrow element is 30, because now p is 30. P is 30, p arrow element is, sorry, p is your second node and p arrow element is your 30. We'll check whether it is matching with your x. It is not matching, is it not? So once again, this while loop will be executed and p will be modified as the address field of this 30. Address field of 30 has the address of this node. So now your p will be modified as pointing to this third node, 50. Okay. So p is pointing to this third node and p arrow element will have 50. P arrow element will have 50. Once again, compare 50 with this search element 20. It is not a match. When it is not a match, what we will do? Once again, we make it as p is equal to p arrow next. We try to search for the next element. So p is equal to p arrow next, but p arrow next holds null value. Okay, p arrow next holds null value. Now p has become null. So when I reach the last node, our p becomes null. So when I'm testing the while condition once again, what will happen? Your p has become null. We have reached the end of your list. Okay. So likewise, we have reached the end of the list. When we traverse like this, when we update the pointer p, we move to the last node. So at one point, we move to the end of your list. Okay. Your p will become null at one point. So at that time, slide change agalaya. First slide, is it visible?
No, ma'am.
Slide, is it visible or not?
Not visible, ma'am.
I'm in fine routine. I'm in fine routine.
Heading மட்டும் தெரியுது, fine routine.
Heading மட்டும் தெரியுதா? All the other things, diagrams and all, it's not visible.
Yes, ma'am.
All others, other students, you just tell.
Visible, ma'am.
Now it is visible, ma'am.
Visible, ma'am.
Diagrams and other codings, while loop, is it visible or not? Visible na solranga. If you have any problem, once again, you check your connectivity, mobile data off பண்ணிட்டு on பண்ணுங்க, அந்த மாதிரி ஏதாவது பண்ணுங்க visible இல்லைன்னா. Okay. Okay. So with the diagram we have to see, then only you can understand. Example diagram வச்சு தான் நம்ம coding படிக்கணும். Okay. Okay, can you understand this one? So when you are traversing, your P denotes the position. So initially it was initialized with the starting address. Then we search the element. We compare the search element with your data element. PRO element defines the data element inside your node. We compared it with the search element. If it is not matching, we update the position P with the address of the next nodes. So P will have the address of the next nodes by using this statement. P is equal to PRO next. Using this statement, we move on to the next nodes. And finally, when P becomes null. So when we reach the last node, when I write this line, P is equal to PRO next, your P will have null. At that point, when I'm checking the entry condition for while, when P becomes null, we can identify that we have reached the end of the node. But still now we have not found the item. 20 is not available in the list. When I reach the end of the node, end of the list, still now I didn't have a match. So this statement will return false. So how to return a false is it's going to return P. P already holds null. So if a null is returned, we can understand that your list does not have your search item. This is the second case. Okay, there are two cases you have discussed. One is your header is empty. Your list itself is empty, means once again there also imagine this entry condition for while loop itself will get violated. So straight away we return P. Null will be returned. And if your search element is not found also, we traverse till the last. When P becomes null, we return that P. P is null, so the return value will be null once again. So in these two cases, our search is a failure. Next, we'll see one more example where our search element is going to be present in the list. I've given you one more example. Imagine our list has these data elements 10, 20, and 30. Our list has 10, 20, and 30. In that case, once again, I'm going to start from the beginning. Okay. Here, start from this place. P is equal to L arrow next. Okay. L defines the header node. L arrow next denotes the first node. So P will have the address of the first node. Okay. I'm starting from the beginning. A new list is given as input for this function. So L defines the header node, start. And L arrow next defines the address of the first node. Okay, so P will have address of the first node now. Before entering into a while loop, I'm initializing P to be the address of the first node. Okay, so at this point, we are checking whether P is null or not. The entry condition is checked. P is not null. And also we check whether PRO element is not equal to X. So PRO element is not X. X is 20, PRO element is 10. So it is not a match. If there is no match here, we go on search for the next element, next node. Okay, if there is if they don't match, means we are going to search in the next node. So to go to the next node, we use this statement P is equal to PRO next. So the address field of this P, it will be copied into P. PRO next defines the address field of this P, that is copied into P. So we move on to the second node. Now P has address of the second node. PRO element is now 20. PRO element is 20, X is also 20. So there is a match. So here your condition is, if it is not matching only, we are going to traverse. If it is matching, you are going to come out of this while loop. Okay, the search element and the node element, it's getting a match here. 20 is found inside the linked list. So in that case, we are going to exit our while loop. We are going to come out of this while loop. Okay, when you are coming out of the while loop, what statement is there? You have return P. And what does P hold? P holds the address of the second node. So the address of the second node, it will be returned. This function, it will return the address of the second node. Okay, so position denotes the address of the second node. So we don't return the value like 1, 2, 3. We return the address of the particular node where your data is available. Okay, so that is the way to search your linked list. Can you understand this? You are going to traverse. The only statement you have to remember is for traversal, you are going to use this statement. P is equal to PRO next. So that will update the position of your linked list. Okay, we use this address field. P is equal to PRO next, or if I am using pointer, pointer is equal to pointer arrow next, like that we are going to update the positions. So after updating, we'll check what is available there. Okay, so this is a simple way to use a find routine. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. I hope you are clear with this. You remember there are three possibilities. Only if you understand these three possibilities, you can remember this line. You have only a single line coding here, one while loop and one traversal. Inside the while condition itself, you are checking whether element is present or not. If the element is not present or not matching, you traverse. For traversal, you use P is equal to P arrow next. That's all. Okay. So this is the only line you have to remember for traversal. Next, we'll go for deletion. So far we have seen how to insert a new node and how to do a find operation, search operation. Okay. So now we'll see how to delete a node in your linked list. We are going to delete a particular node. So we are going to see two variations. We are going to see how to delete a particular node in your linked list, and also we are going to see how to delete an entire list, full list also we'll see later. Okay. So before starting a delete operation, it's going to be done with the help of your search operation. So to delete an element, if I want to delete 20 in my list, what should I do? I should first find that element. Only if that element is found, I can delete that node, is it not? So before doing a delete operation, you have to search for that element. Like how in the previous example, we did the find operation. We have to search for that element. And if that element is found, you can delete that node. If the element is not found, you cannot delete. So the same technique you're going to follow here also. So here your function is going to be written like void. So after deleting, you don't return anything. Okay. So void and then delete, and then element type is X, element type and X. Okay. X is the element you're going to delete from the list L. Okay. So you can see the comment lines. You're going to delete from a list. The cell pointed to by P arrow next is wiped out. Okay. And then assume the use of a header node. Here in this example, we are going to assume we have a header node. Okay. We'll have a header node, and I've taken this diagram once again for clarity. Imagine you're going to delete this node A3. Okay, we are going to delete a node. In deletion, what I told you, there is only one assignment. Address of A4, we are going to assign it in the address field of A2. So we are going to use position P and temp cell. We are going to use a temporary variable also. Okay, position P and temp cell. Okay, because we need to remember the address of two nodes. Previous node also we have to remember. So that's why we have used one more variable to note the position of nodes. P is equal to find previous of XL. Okay, so here let's take some more time to analyze. Imagine I'm going to delete the node A3. If I'm going to delete the node A3 and my position is P, I should know the previous position of this particular A3. If I know the previous position, I'll get the address field of this previous node. Okay, so that's why we need to find out the previous node to X. X is the node we are going to delete. X is the node we are going to delete. Imagine A3 is the node we are going to delete. A3 is X. We need to know the address of the previous node also. Simply with address of A3, we cannot delete. We need to know the address of the previous node also. So for that, we are going to use one more function called find previous. Okay, for that, imagine there is a find previous function available. We'll see that coding also later. Okay, find previous function will return the previous node. Okay, if we are going to delete A3, it will return the address of A2. Okay, that will be returned. That will be available in P. Okay, we are going to store that in P. Okay, so once you've got the address of the previous node, we can do modifications. Okay, if P arrow next not equal to null, it means that P arrow next must not be null. So P is your previous node. Its next field, if it is null, means your search element is not present. It means that your list does not have the search item. I want to delete 10, but 10 is not available in your list. Okay, in that case, you cannot do a deletion. Okay, so if P arrow next equal to null means you won't have a you won't have the search item at all. You have reached the end of the list, it means. Okay, but it should not be null. If it is not null, then we can proceed. If it is not null, you have some node. You are just before that node, like that. You got correctly the previous node. So it must not be null. Only if I reach the end of the list, end of the list, it means that a search item is not present. But if I have not reached the end of the list, it will have something. Is it not? P arrow next will have something, some address of the next node. So P arrow next must not be null. Okay. And if X is found, we are going to delete. So this if loop, it denotes that X is found. And X is found, and P is the previous node. P is the previous node of this X node. And we are going to delete that X. Okay. And temp cell, we are going to make some modification. Temp cell is equal to P arrow next. We are going to store, temporarily we are going to store P arrow next. Okay, P arrow next is your node A3. Okay, X, the address of X. That we are going to temporarily save it in your temp cell. Okay, because we are going to remove this temp cell. Okay, and then we are going to make some modification. P arrow next is equal to temp cell arrow next. So this node, temp cell holds the node that we are going to delete. Temp cell denotes the node we are going to delete. It holds the address of the next node A4. Okay, so the address of A4, it is now available in the address field of temp cell. Okay, so address field of temp cell holds the address of A4. That should be saved inside this previous node, is it not? So that is the step written here. P arrow next is equal to temp cell arrow next. P is your previous node. Temp cell is this A3. Temp cell arrow next holds the address of A4. Address of A4 should be saved into the P arrow next. Okay, so that is written in this particular line. P arrow next is equal to temp cell arrow next. So thereby this modification is done. Address of A4 is stored in address field of A2. That denotes this particular statement. P arrow next is equal to temp cell arrow next. So we are going to bypass the cell to be deleted. So the cell to be deleted is A3. We are bypassing. We are just having a loop like this. We are bypassing that so that will be freed. We are no more. We don't need that A3 anymore. So now our node to be deleted is temp cell. Okay. So we have to make this temp cell as, we have to free this node. We have to remove this temp cell totally. Okay. So we have to modify the address field of this temp cell as null. Okay, we have to modify the address field of temp cell as null, and for that we use this function called free temp cell. So this node, it will be released. That location will be released. So this is a question one of you asked. Whenever we are doing deletion, we have to explicitly use the free function to release the memory of that particular node. Okay, so temp cell, it is now holding the address of this particular node that we want to delete. Okay, we have to release that node. For that we use a function called free temp cell that will release the node memory of this particular node A3. Okay, thereby we'll delete. These are the two or three lines to do a delete operation. Okay, can you understand? So we have some 2 or 3 steps here. Whenever you're deleting, you have to search a particular element. If the search element is found, you have to find out what is the previous element. So that previous element, we are storing it inside the variable called temp cell. And okay, so temp cell holds the current node which you are going to delete. Okay, and P holds the address of the previous node. We are going to do only one thing. You are going to store the address of the A4 into address field of A2. So address of this A3 is now present in temp cell. So temp cell arrow next, it will give the address of A4. Okay, in your notebook you can write temp cell arrow next, it denote address of A4. Okay, so address of A4, it should be placed in address field of A2. So address field of A2 is denoted by your P arrow next, because A2 is now denoted by P. So by the side you can also write in your diagram P. You can write P below this A2 and temp cell under this A3. If it is so, it will be more clear when you later refer. So that way you can do delete operation here. Okay. So we'll move on for the next example. We saw that in your previous example, we used a function called find previous. Is it not? Find previous, it will return the previous node of your search item. If I'm searching A3, it will give the address of A2. If I'm searching A5, it will this function should return the address of A4. Okay. So only if you are having this function, you can easily do deletion. So we should write a function for find previous also. So here I've given an example and also a function to find out the previous node in your previous node of your search item. For example, if I'm searching 20 or if I'm searching 30, the previous node should be 20. So this function, it will return the previous node. Once again, here also we use a header, and if element is not found, then next field is returned as null. So we use a function called find previous. The header and all, it is the same. We'll see how to return the previous node. So P is your list. Starting address, it is placed in your P. And then we are searching the item called 30. Then this function find previous should return the address of the node 20. Okay. If my search element is 30, the address of the node 20 should be returned. Okay. For that, we are going to initialize our position P to point to the first node. So that's why we return it as P is equal to L. Okay, so then while P arrow next not equal to null and P arrow next arrow element, you can use pointers like this. P arrow next denotes this field. Okay, P arrow next denotes the address field of the first node. Okay, arrow element denotes this 20. Okay, arrow element denotes the P arrow next denotes the address field of this position P. In turn, you just imagine P arrow next holds the address of the second node. So this data field of this one is 20. If it is matching, it means that element is found. Okay, so here we have used 2 pointers. You can use like this also. P arrow next denotes the next node. Its data field you are going to check. Okay, if it is not matching, we go on traverse to the next one. To traverse, what we are going to do, we just modify P as P arrow next. So it means that we move our position. Okay, we move the pointer position. So now I'll check whether P arrow next is your data. P arrow next arrow element is your 30. If it is 30, now at this point we'll get a matching. Your 30 is getting a matching with your X. In that case, your data is getting a match. We come out of the loop and we return P. So P holds the address of the previous element. So since we are using P arrow next arrow element, from this position itself, we'll go and search the data field in your next field, next node. Okay. So thereby, if matching is found, P holds the address of the previous node. Okay. P holds the address of the previous node. So that will be returned. So this is a function to find out the previous element. So we'll see how to delete a node in your linked list. We'll see the next example of deleting a linked list. So here also we are going to do some pointer modifications. Here also we'll search an element. This one is already we have seen a function to delete a node, is it not? So this example I've taken from your textbook once again to delete the entire list. We are going to delete the entire list. So to delete an entire list, what we should do is we should delete the nodes one by one. Okay. So initially you're having a header. Its address is assigned to P. Then what we do is we make this L arrow next as null. Make this address field of header as null. Then we traverse to the next node. So to traverse to the next node, it is stored in the address in the variable P. P holds the address of the first node. So we are going to take this P and we are going to delete P. Before deleting this node P, we have to save the address of the next node. Is it not? So while p not equal to null, until this p becomes null, one by one you're going to delete all the nodes. First I'll delete this a1, then I'll delete a2, then delete a3. So while deleting, you're going to use the free function. Free function will automatically release all the memory. Okay. So simply we are going to combine traverse function and free function. We are going to traverse. How to do a traversal? We'll use a statement p is equal to p arrow next, or like that we are going to traverse. So we are going to use a variable called temp to hold the next node. So before deleting a1, I should save this a2. Simply if I delete a1, I will not get the address of a2. Okay, so that is the purpose of using this variable temp. Okay, so simply if I am deleting a1, what will happen? If I am deleting a1, I won't get the address of a2. So we cannot delete all these nodes. So before deleting a particular node, we are going to save the address field of this node so that we'll get the later nodes. We'll get the successive nodes. So we are going to save that first. Okay. So while p not equal to null, until this p becomes null, we are going to do these set of operations. Okay. We are going to save the value of the next node. Temp is equal to p arrow next defines that in temp we are going to save the address of the next node. So before deleting p, we are going to do this step. Before deleting p, you save the address of a2 into temp, and then you free this p. Free p, it will delete this node. After freeing p, this node will be deleted. We are going to update your p as temp. P holds the address of the next node. We are going to once again save this temp inside this variable p so that this loop can be iterated. So every time p will get modified with the updated value, or p will get modified with the successive nodes. So every time p will hold the next node, next node, next node, like that. Before freeing, you're going to save the address of the next node inside this temp. Likewise, you can scan through. You can scan through and remove the elements one by one. So in your loop, it's going to iterate like this. Every time your temp and p are going to use. Temp will hold the address of the next node. You will free that and you'll update p with the next node. Okay, until your p becomes null. Till the last node will do. And finally, your p will become null. When you update p as temp, your temp in the last step, it will become as null. Now temp holds the null value. When you update p with your temp, p will hold null. So at that point, you can terminate your while loop. When p becomes null, you can terminate your while loop. All the nodes are released using your free function. Okay. So this is a way of deleting an entire list using your free function. So there are two methods are discussed in your textbook to perform deletion. I've taken the second method. In the first method, they don't do proper dynamic release. Okay. In the first method, they have listed out and they have discussed about the shortcoming. There is a problem, memory is not released properly. So they have suggested once again the second method where properly memory is released. So I've just discussed only the second method so that you might not get confused. If I'm telling both the methods, you might get confused. They've taken the second method also, second method alone. Okay. So until p becomes null, we are going to traverse and we are going to delete. So these are some of the applications of list. Okay. Some of the applications of list. So in the next class, tomorrow we'll be seeing about a circularly linked list and some operations in a circularly and doubly linked list. So today we have seen about the ADT operations. That is insertion, deletion, and search ADT operations in your singly linked list. And these are some of the applications. They can be applied in stack and queue or in graph. Graph, stack, and queue and all we'll see in the next classes, in the next units, second, third, and fourth units. And I've shown you one more example here, a sparse matrix. A sparse matrix is where matrix is also one form of an array. Is it not? Matrix is a 2D representation of an array, and you have some data elements stored here. There is a sparse matrix means most of the fields will be having a 0. Only some of the fields will be using. Some of the position alone will have some data. Other data elements will be simply 0, wasted. So that notation is called a sparse matrix. In that case also you can implement it using a linked list. Okay. So here, how many elements are here? Only 4 fields we have used, but 16 locations are allocated. So thereby we are wasting memory in the case of a sparse matrix. Okay. So in that case also you can use a linked list. That is one example here. So with this we'll wind up the session. So to implement your linked list, simply linked list as a program, I'm going to upload a program in your MS Team itself. I'll upload a program in a Word document, and you just simply try to execute using your online compiler. Your program is going to be like this, a menu-driven program. One by one we do insertion, and then we can display insertion display. This program, it is available in your textbook, second textbook, Rima Tereja. In the page number also I've given 181 to 194. They have included all the operations like insertion, deletion, insertion in a particular position, or inserting after a particular node or before a particular node, or deleting before a particular node, like that. In specifically more number of functions are listed in this particular pages. You can go through this page number 181 to 194. You can go through that, and I'll upload one program for insertion and deletion alone. Sorry, insertion and display alone. That you can test it later. So today I thought of executing that program also, but already time is up. You try it on your own, or tomorrow also we can execute that singly linked list. Okay. So with that, I think we can wind up our session. Can you understand the topics today?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So we go through both the textbooks, whatever topics we have discussed. Assignments you have completed, very good about that. So after completing this unit 1, we'll have a quiz session. Quiz also I'll be posting. Okay, very simple quiz alone I'll post. So with this, we'll wind up our session. Okay, tomorrow you just revise and come. We'll discuss more about circularly and doubly linked list. Okay, thank you, Pa. You can leave the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
okay, Pa.